Period of enslavement. Some maskers want to represent this time because they don't want to just continue the story of Africans were enslaved. They want to say that before Africans were enslaved, they had a culture and something, so much that they were able to bring to make American culture. A lot of what is American culture is African American in origin. And so in 2018, this particular spy boy made this suit in honor of Shango, who is considered the god of social justice and thunder and lightning. And there was another suit made in 2018, and they were not working together and they didn't know each other. And it was a three-dimensional suit represented by rams and axes and masks to represent the deity Shango, which I find interesting because people generally don't talk to each other about the suits that they're making. These are all secret. And so I want to point out this particular suit represents Christianity, the Catholicism of Alfred Doucet, the Catholicism of the Afro-Creoles. And in it, you see the Last Supper, you see the crucifixion, you see Mary, and the Roman soldier checking to make sure that Jesus is dead. You see the flying doves. The flying doves retain the meaning of the freedom of the spirit. When some Africans came over, they believed that if they jumped into the sea, the gods would, carry them back to Africa. They could fly back to Africa. The idea of the bird in our we have what we call second line traditions, which are music. The band is in the family are the first line, and then the followers are the second line. And you'll often see them with doves on their shoulder or with a white handkerchief. And the white handkerchief represents that dove or that spirit, that life of the person. So, but today with the commodification of the culture, you see many white people with second lines. They have the bands and they're waving the white handkerchiefs, but they don't know that this is a symbol of the spirituality, the soul, the spirit of the person that can fly and take off. And so the masking, the mystery in motion was a display of these particular of the new turn in Black Mardi Gras masking traditions. It was not easy to bring this about. Victor received a lot of criticism for 10 years when he wanted to depart from the traditional themes. But we have here this suit it's the Love Medicine suit. It's the suit that represents the show. And this is a combination of Congo and Haitian spiritualities. The Nganga is the Congo name for someone who is a medicine man. And Steve was saying that the tribes have different positions, and tribes have medicine men. This is the suit of a medicine man, and the suit in the red and black, if you turn, is another suit of a medicine man. And the spirituality being represented here is the Black Spiritual Church, which has Black Hawk as its spiritual intercessor to the gods. And the Black Spiritual Church really thrived in the 1920s and 1930s. And so he's a medicine man representing the spirit of Black Hawk. The suit next to the Black Hawk suit is in honor of Nana Baruku, who is a Yoruba Orisha and a grandmother, and is considered a very elderly spirit. And she's a medicine queen. So you're kind of seeing a theme here about many of the medicine people in these tribes adopting these more spiritual traditions, but also chiefs are as well. And the particular suit over here is one that I made in honor of my mother. My mother prayed, she was Catholic, and she prayed the novena to St. Martha, the Dragon Slayer. And what's interesting to me is that even if I talk to a priest who lives outside of New Orleans, he'll say, "Who's St. Martha, the Dragon Slayer?" And that is a retention in the old Creole community of a French version of Martha, the story of Martha coming over to France, and there was a big snake or a dragon, and she was able to use her holy scepter to slay the dragon. And so that spirituality was part of Afro-Creole community that survived in New Orleans. And I made that, I made those. And then I made the representation of Mammy Water, who is also like that St. Martha character who has a dragon. And Mammy Water is recognized in Ghana as an important spiritual personality. And I wanted to bring the two portraits done by a Nigerian painter. One is called Daughter of Shango, and the other I named myself Our Lady of the Lake. We have a large lake in New Orleans called Lake Pontchartrain. And one day he was in New Orleans and he sat at that lake for 3 hours. And when he came home, he painted that particular portrait. And I always saw it as arising out of the lake. And we have a lot of, you do too, Our Lady of the Lake, who represents the patroness of the sailors. And the last one is the Egungun. And I think it's so fitting that one of the last images is of the Egungun, which in Yoruba land and in Benin, it represents the ancestors. The ancestors come out and they walk among their people. And so it's just fitting that we have that particular suit with the beading and sequencing styles that correlate to the beading and sequencing styles in New Orleans. It's always said that New Orleans beading styles never represented Native American beading styles, but are always more African in nature, even though they were adopting in this outer manifestation a more Plains Indian attire. So that's what I have to say.
The Ogun comes from the
Yoruba
culture.
Yes, Yoruba and Benin.
Benin, yes. Because in Benin and in Nigeria, they call him Ogun.
Well, Ogun, there's Ogun and there's Egungun. So this is not Ogun, because Ogun is a warrior and medicine man, and associated with iron. Egungun is associated with ancestors. Yeah, so it's O-G-U-N and then E-G-U-N-G-U-N. Egungun, yes. You're welcome.
Excuse me, another question. The spirits you're talking about, are they coming from Africa or from American Indians?
No,
or both of them?
Well, it's not necessarily coming from American Indians, because today what people will say is that it's an homage to the Indian people giving refuge to the enslaved people who were running away. But there was never a sense of that Indian spirit is inhabiting me. It's the spirits. It's a spirit. Some people will just say it's a spirit, and most of them are Christian. But many of them now are saying, they don't define who that spirit is. And it's always individual, whatever that spirit is.
Parts of lots of things.
It's lots of things.
Integrating in the culture.
Yes,
today.
yes. It's completely idiosyncratic.
Okay.
Completely the individual self-expression within the bounds of their particular tribe.
And my last question would be, were there any, someone like Martin Luther King, would he interact with big chiefs?
Well, he only came to the time he came to New Orleans was to establish the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And so they would not necessarily have met with any chiefs, because this was something that was strictly done on Mardi Gras and on St. Joseph's Night, 2 times a year. So they would have been probably in different classes. More middle-class people probably would have been meeting with Martin Luther King, as opposed to the working-class people who were in the masking culture. Does that make sense? I mean, do you get it?
Yes, yes.
I mean, the distinction, because there was a class distinction, and also one is cultural, and it wasn't seen as a cultural movement at that time. It was just seen as something that black people were doing every year, and they had done it for decades.
And at the beginning, within the black
just
community.
Within the black community.
Okay.
Yes.
But, today,
but white people would come to black communities, and they try to see the Indians.
Please, can you stand near your creations,
Yes.
please, for the picture?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.